hearts and their compassion in their homes to help those that are in distress carry on, Lord, to carry on with their life. I pray you'd bless them in their efforts, Lord, and help us here to come to a greater awareness of our need to be dependent upon you, not government, nor material things, for the blessings of life, liberty, and happiness. We trust you'll guide us in our decisions tonight, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the city manager will be joining us shortly. He's out taking care of a matter of business, and in fact, here he comes now with a smile on his face. Our first item tonight is a presentation of a proclamation regarding the National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Program. Do we have anyone here tonight from that organization? If you would meet me at the podium, please. Welcome to Haltom City. In just a moment after I present this proclamation to me, if you will introduce yourself and any comments you'd like to make to the council or to our citizens here in the audience or on TV, feel free to do so. From the office of the mayor of the city of Haltom City, Texas, September 2005 is National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month. Whereas substance use disorders are a serious and treatable health problem, and whereas assessing our citizens' need for addiction treatment and referring them to appropriate treatment is a crucial first step in helping people realize that recovery is possible and treatment is effective, and whereas celebrating individuals in recovery and their families and saluting the health care providers who help them obtain treatment, all of this educates our community about the benefits of treatment and affirms that such providers deserve adequate compensation for their services. And whereas to help achieve this goal, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, and the Tarrant County Challenge Coalition invite all residents of Haltom City to participate in National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month. Now, therefore, I, Calvin White, Mayor of the City of Haltom City, Texas, on behalf of the council and all of our citizens, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2005 as National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month. And it is my privilege to present this proclamation at this time.
I didn't know I had to talk here, so I'm going to keep this very brief. I'm Cynthia Savage, and I am the Adult Education Coordinator at the Tarrant Council. All of us there at the council, we love what we do. We think this is just such an important part of our community, and we are here for you, along with all the other agencies that we work with, and we thank you for recognizing us.
Thank you very much. We have a presentation to be made tonight to the citizens of Haltom City by the Birdville Historical Society. And Ms. Porter, are you the presenter? And you probably have some guests with you tonight from that organization you might like to introduce.
All right. Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Muir, Ms. Staub, Mr. Olson, I appreciate this time to come and talk to you. And I am truly grateful for your support in the past. Currently, our Historical Society has 140 members. There are a few of them here tonight. Yvonne Edens is here. David Harper is here. Warren Davenport, Bob Watkins, Fran Burns, and Ray Eklund. I thank you all for coming. But we meet quarterly. Our last meeting was in August, and we visited the Heritage Room at Tarrant County College. We had a great time there. Our next meeting will be November 15th. We're going to tour the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. Or did I get that backwards? Engraving and Printing. where they make money. Anyway, if you'd like to join us on that tour, you're welcome to go. All of you on the council, I handed you a brochure. That's one of the things we did this year. We revised our brochure and made it a little bit better looking. And we also have revised or rebuilt our website. And if you have not visited it, you need to. It has a tremendous amount of information there for you. We just made a trip to the printer today to turn in a little book that we've been printing or working on. It's the history of Birdville that's going to be for sale later on this month. And I'm very proud of it. All I did was edit the book, but if you've ever edited a book, that's a big job. We are still working on our Rock House book, what we call a Rock House book. We are collecting information about historical homes in the Birdville area. And we have a great committee that's working on that, and we plan to do a little more extensive research and study before we put this book together, but we want it to be a great book for people to have in their homes, with possibly the home that you live in or one that your parents lived in or your grandparents lived in. And we're hoping to document all the homes in the area that are of historical value. One of the things that I'm especially proud of this year is most of you, or I hope all of you got your invitation to the second annual Tarrant County Historic Preservation Summit. I'm a member of the Tarrant County Historical Commission, and last year was our first one. We held it at the Botanic Gardens in Fort Worth. And right after it was over, I started vying for the position, let's have it out here in Birdville, because the first county seat was here in Birdville. And on the invitation, we have a picture of the Tarrant County Courthouse, as well as the little log cabin that was the Tarrant County Courthouse at Birdville before it was taken to Fort Worth. They actually didn't have time to build a big structure, so all it was a little log cabin. Next year, in 2006, our Historical Society will be 10 years old. I've kind of devoted, I guess, 11 years of my life to this organization, and I think it's wonderful, and I think if we don't know where we came from, how are we going to know where we're going? But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and I really appreciate all your support, and I thank you very much.
Before you leave
Oh,
the
dear.
podium, Ms. Porter.
No.
Oh, dear.
No, go ahead. I should have said I'll be glad to take questions. I'm sorry.
I have a comment to make or question, and I see we have a couple of lights from the council on. I noticed the brochure you gave us has a membership application.
It does.
If someone just really would like to join, you would accept additional memberships, right?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to be sure.
I mail out about 250 quarterly newsletters, and if they are on our mailing list or a member of our society, they will get that newsletter quarterly.
Okay. The reason I ask, I know somebody probably sitting in the same chair I am that needs to get you a check. So just wanted to be sure you were
Okay.
actually
That
taking
sounds
money
good.
tonight. Councilmember Sutton, I think your light was on first.
Yeah, Mrs. Porter, you did not do that website justice. That website is astounding.
Oh, you have looked at it.
birdvillehistory.org. It is excellent, and the links that you have on there are very special. For instance, I know Yvonne Edens has done a lot of work on genealogical history, and I was very impressed with the work that she had done on that website. You can spend hours, and if you don't have access to a computer, I recommend you go to the library just for that one thing. It is fantastic when you see the quality of work that people in this area have done on their websites. It's just wonderful, and I just want to extend my congratulations to what you guys have done with that. It's very, very good.
Thank you very much. We have a young man that's a student at Tarrant County College that developed that website for us, and I think he must really enjoy it because he spent hours and hours and hours developing it for us. So thank you very much.
www.birdvillehistory.org.
Yeah, please don't say Birdville.
Tell me how to say it.
Birdville.
Birdville. See,
Birdville.
Birdville.
Oh,
www.
birdvillehistory.org. Thank you.
Link to it from our website.
Yes, there is. Mhm.
Councilmember Bransom.
Thank you, Mayor. Betty, if for those of us that are interested in obtaining one of the history books of Birdville, and I am native, not Birdville, Fort Worth, but I am Birdville. I can
Yes.
say it. How would one go about getting on the list to get one of those books? And do you have any idea how much they'll be?
They're going to be $10. There's 68 pages of nothing but history. They will be numbered. We only have ordered 250 because I'm running out of money for this year. But we will have them for sale at the library. I've talked to the library director already. And since we are a nonprofit organization, they will be able to sell them down there for us. Or people can just contact Fran Burns at the City Hall. and
Okay,
she'll-
Fran, will you save one for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Councilmember Hutchison.
Hello, Betty. I am a history instructor over at Tarrant County College, and I just want to say thank you so much for saying what you said a while ago about if we don't know where we've been, we don't know where we're going. I tell that to my history students all the time at Tarrant County, and I think I know the young man who developed that website for you. Has been a developing thing. He's come and asked me for a couple of questions a few times, too. So I am also one who recognizes that we need to get a check to you, the same person who sits in this chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Davidson is the curator of the Heritage Room there at TCC, and he's wonderful to work with if you have any questions. And they have a lot of information there about our area if you'd like to contact him.
I'll make sure all of them get one.
Thank you, Ms. Edens.
Well, how nice.
Will you take a check? Cash only, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is all exciting. And I know you're excited, Ms. Porter, you and other members of the group, to be hosting this event here in just a couple of weeks. And I'm looking forward to being there. Okay, we move now to the announcements, and I think our Public Information Officer, Fran Burns, has a number of announcements to make tonight. And, Fran?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mayor. First of all, the memorial softball game in honor of Gary Hires was played last Saturday night, and I'm glad to announce that the police department redeemed themselves by winning this year over the fire department. I believe the score was 26-22, and it was a pretty good turnout. Everyone had fun, and it gets the ball rolling for the fundraiser to help needy kids during the holidays. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that as the months go by. This Thursday at 11 a.m. at the Senior Center, there will be a Veterans Benefits presentation. If you're a veteran or a widow of a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, please attend this program. There's going to be one of the fellows from the Veteran Services of Tarrant County talking about what's available to you. At the Rec Center currently is a new program for kids in the 3rd through 8th grades. It happens on Saturday evenings, and it's called Fun Time Live. For the price of just $9 per child, you can bring your child there beginning at 7 p.m. in the evening and leave them there until 11 p.m. And they're going to be doing all kinds of fun things. And scheduled for this coming Saturday, the 17th, is Be the DJ Night. You can win or name that tune contest and be the DJ for 30 minutes. And there's also a giant slide, 5-on-5 basketball game. It just sounds like a lot of fun. So if you have questions about this new program, of course, you can contact the Rec Center at 831-6464. Excuse me. The Rec Center will host, of course, its grand reopening on September 24th, which is just a couple weeks away at 10 a.m. There'll be a ribbon cutting, and we hope that everybody will come and see the new Rec Center if you haven't seen it already. It's just a beautiful facility. And then that same day, beginning at 11 a.m. and continuing until 3 p.m., is the Fire Department Open House. And that's just down the street. So if you can come to one, please stop in at the open house and enjoy what's going on there. I think a lot of the city departments, not just the fire department, will have information available that day. There'll be a blood drive on September the 19th at the library. There'll be the Carter Bloodmobile parked there from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And it's real important at this time to give blood because there's such a great national need. So if you're able to do that, please stop by and visit the Carter Bloodmobile. Project Redirectory continues up at Fire Hall number 3, which is the water tower at 820 and Haltom Road. And anytime at all, you can take your old telephone book and instead of throwing it away in the trash, you can recycle it and give it new life. And the last thing I have concerns the trash bash. And you know, as public information officer and as coordinator of Keep Haltom City Beautiful, I wear a lot of different hats. And so tonight, to draw attention to this very important event coming up on Saturday, I'm going to wear this fish for just a little while and ruin my hair. Anyway, Trash Bash starts at 9 o'clock this coming Saturday up at the Birdville Environmental Studies Center. We'll have a cleanup. Oops. I'm getting funny looks from my boss. We'll have a cleanup starting at 9.
We can capture a picture of the TV.
I wore the wrong outfit. I should have worn something blue. We'll have our litter pickup at 9, of course, and we'll have our Water Fest beginning at 11 a.m. And I wanted to bring light to the fact that 4 mayors, or at least mayoral representatives, will be there playing this kind of silly relay game, which is also educational. And that's going to be about 11:15. We're going to have free lunch for volunteers, games and door prizes, concessions, displays, and information, and much, much more. Hold on, that was a cue. Oh, there it is. Because we'll have a special guest. Everyone's just going to want to see this guy. And here he is. Elvis is in the house. Elvis will be coming to play our Trash Bash this coming weekend. Elvis is actually Greg Moon, and he came to us and said that he wanted to help with a community event. And so I said to him, well, we have a Trash Bash coming up. And the reason he wanted to help was to help raise funds for the flood victims, and thought that, well, since we're dealing with water, water is a resource and water is a danger, this might be a good tie-in. So Elvis is donating his services. NEAT will donate $1 per trash bag of litter turned in by our volunteers. Lunch will be free for the volunteers, but anybody that wants to eat who's not a volunteer, the money that is collected off of the lunch will go to the Red Cross. So all the funds that we collect will go to the Red Cross. And Elvis, we'll look forward to seeing you. Okay.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to have the King with us tonight.
I think Elvis
Fran,
has left the building. Yeah.
Fran, will the mayors be required to wear those hats also?
You know, I was thinking about that.
Mayor representatives?
I
Okay.
found this-
I volunteer our mayor to do that, okay?
You know, it's unfortunate, but he's already told me he's got a prior commitment, so I say we put it on him now. No, I think Jim Sutton's going to be filling in for him. Is that correct?
Oh, am I? That's right. That's correct. And I was going to ask you a question about that green frog we won. You know, remember one of those years we actually won something.
Right, yes.
Should I be bringing it to this next one?
If you don't mind, we'll pass it along.
We
you may
won't
end up
need to
keeping
take it to another town, though.
Oh,
You
okay.
realize we'll hang on to it. I
Okay,
think.
great. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you very much.
The trash bash is a very serious matter to pick up pollution and trash and debris out of our streams and other places. It's not every council meeting we get to have Elvis and Nemo appear at the microphone at the same time. But we got to tonight to help remind us in a very memorable way about the opportunity this Saturday on the Trash Bash. Okay, we'll move now to the consent agenda. This consists of items 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your agenda. This is considered to be self-explanatory and will be enacted by the council with one motion and approval by the council of these items to authorizes the city manager to implement them in accordance with the staff recommendations. Councilmember Bransom.
Thank you, Mayor. I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember Holcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the second.
Okay, I want to state just for especially people who are watching at home what this is. It's approval of the minutes, an interlocal agreement with the City of Fort Worth for the use of the Environmental Collection Center, an interlocal cooperative agreement or cooperation agreement for development and operation of the Trinity Railway Express, and to authorize the city manager to execute a quiet zone funding agreement with the Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Muir, do you have any comments you need to make on any of these items before I ask for comments from the council?
Sure. Just to let the citizens know additionally about a couple of these items. The interlocal cooperation agreement for the TRE. This is an agreement that the city has participated in with about 7 or 8 other cities in the area to help fund the TRE. The city's portion is based on its population and the number of citizens that use the TRE. They go over there and take periodically they take license plate numbers off of cars in the parking lot, and they run them, and they find out who's using it. So this is just a renewal of that existing agreement. Quiet zone funding agreement. As we've talked about before, the city has received a grant, a TxDOT grant, to install quiet zones at railroad crossings. There's a $50,000 match the city has to provide, and the EDC has graciously agreed to provide that match for the city, and this is just more or less formalizes that funding mechanism between the EDC and the city.
If you would, for the benefit of our citizens who may not know what a quiet zone is, where are those quiet zones along the railways in Haltom City, and what is their purpose?
We have no quiet zones in Haltom City right now. With this, let me define what a quiet zone is first. If you've lived near a railroad track, you hear the trains blowing their horns, which seem to be miles ahead before they get to the intersection. The quiet zone would eliminate the train from blowing its horn, and it would put a siren at the intersection, or blowing out towards the people in the street. So it would only go off as the intersection's triggered, and then as the train goes by, it would stop. But the train would not be blowing its horn all the way up the line or down the line, as we've got a lot of homes that are along those train tracks and businesses as well. This would help deal with those, putting those quiet zones in. We've identified 5 intersections throughout town, and we're going to do as many as we can with the 250. We have no expectation that we'll be able to do all 5, but the intersections we've identified are Haltom Road at the UPR crossing, McLean at the UPR crossing, Glenview at the Cotton Belt crossing, Janeda at the Cotton Belt crossing, and Haltom Road at the Cotton Belt crossing. And as we get farther along into it, we're going to prioritize our intersections, but we'll come back with a recommendation for what those priorities will be.
And I want to make one additional comment to what the city manager said about the interlocal cooperation agreement on the Trinity Railway Express. In view of the fact that I believe it's $38,000 a year that the city of Haltom, $35,000 a year that Haltom City has entered into an agreement with the Trinity Railway Express, that being based on when they do go through and do their checks of the parking lots, they find there's a lot of people in Haltom City riding the Trinity Railway Express, and that was a surprise to me. It was very informative to me to find out that we have that much interest where people are parking in Richland Hills or downtown at the Intermodal Center, that we have people who drive their vehicles to those locations and catch a train to go to wherever their destination is, probably pointing up to the great value of public transportation, which is certainly the wave of the future, not only in Haltom City, but throughout this whole metroplex, with air quality and gasoline prices and all the other things that are happening. Okay, any other comments on the consent agenda? There being none, if you'll register your vote at this time, I will display it, and it passes by unanimous vote of the council present. Moving on with the regular agenda, our first item, number 5. Mr. Muir, you want to introduce this for us, please?
Sure. As Mr. Welch is approaching the dais as the podium, this is a The second reading of the vote on our budget, on our annual budget. We had a public hearing on it last council meeting on the 29th. We've had, I don't know how many meetings, workshops, 3 or 4 workshops going over this document. This is the second and final reading. With the vote that you take tonight, this will adopt the budget for fiscal year 2005, 2006. Did I just take all your thunder away? You got something else
For
to
the
add?
most part, sir,
I'm
yes.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to, all I was going to mention was that the city charter does prescribe one public hearing, which was held on the 29th, and 2 readings of the ordinance. This is the second reading. If you may recall, last year, this was a consent agenda item. This year, due to some changes in the laws concerning truth and taxation, we have moved the budget item and the next item, which we'll get to in just a minute, to a regular agenda item for separate action. The budget for the 2006 fiscal year is the same amount that we quoted to you at the public hearing on the 29th, $54,655,365. Again, broken up simply between operations of $41.9 million and capital projects of $12.7 million. This is an increase of $5.2 million over the fiscal year 05 adopted budget. Of this $5.2 million increase, $4 million of it is in the capital projects. So the increase in operations is a much more moderate $1.2 million when you take the entire $40 million operating budget into account.
Okay, questions or comments for Mr. Welch? Okay, Mr. Welch, if you could, I know we had a news story appearing in the media last week or so regarding, and I want to focus on only one item, and that has to do with the council budget. It was reported a 38% increase in that budget. Could you make a comment on that for us? Because I will tell you, I caught grief over that, and I appreciate the citizens of Haltom City saying, what in the heck is going on? You know, what, in these tough times, why are you going up 38% on your budget in Haltom City? So could you make some comments regarding that, please?
I'd like to, first of all, in speaking to the article that appeared in the Star Telegram on Tuesday of last week, mention that there was a technical error in the presentation of the numbers. The schedule in the news article said that it was comparing the adopted 2004-2005 budget with the proposed 2005-2006 budget. That, in fact, was not the case. The first column, the 2004-2005 set of numbers, are in fact a staff estimate of expenditures for the 2004-2005 year, and it was not the adopted budget amount. The adopted budget amount for the council's department was $20,150. For 2006, the council's proposed budget is $20,750, or a $600 increase. What could have caused the reporting of an estimated expenditure in the council department of $15,500 is really very simple. Within the council's budget, we budget $1,000 for each council member to get training. We budget $1,500 for the mayor to receive training and travel because of some additional responsibilities that the mayor has as the chief elected official of the city. Now, that is a standard amount. It has been the amount budgeted for several years for the city council. The issue at hand is if the council does not travel that much in the course of the year, then our estimate for the expenditures in that department will be lower than the budget, and that is exactly what happened. We budgeted $8,500 for council travel. Our current estimate is that the council travel will be about $4,000 less than that amount. So that forms the basis for the expenditure estimate being lower. it would be wholly inappropriate to go back and say that in FY06, since the council only spent about $4,500 or $5,000 on travel this particular year, to arbitrarily reduce the funding for next year. Because, a fine example of that is the state legislature has just mandated that the city council is going to have new training, open meetings and open records. It's going to be required. And so it's going to be one of the reasons why the council is going to have to travel. And they're going to have to attend some conferences. And we do leave money in the budget for the council to attend conferences that are necessary, appropriate. It makes the council members more informed. It gives the council members a chance to talk with experts in fields of interest to them in the governmental field. It gives the council opportunity to talk to other council members and other mayors and other cities that have experience that can be vitally important. So I know I have gone on entirely too long here and probably oversold the entire concept, but the fact of the matter is the increase from adopted budget to the budget that's being considered tonight is 3%, $600. And everything's pretty much in line there.
Well, the reason I wanted to be sure that was clear is not only did I get some questions regarding that, I think some of the other council members did as well. And the council is making a great effort to set an example and to be very responsible with the expenditures that we make regarding that. I know this council budget set at $20,000, whatever you said a moment ago. When I came on board was $40,800, so we've cut that amount in half, and I feel very good about that. And when I saw that we'd increased it back up 38%, it was a cause of concern to me, and not only me, but other members of the council fielded these kind of calls as well. So thank you for clearing that up. Were there other items in that news story that might lead a reader to not have an accurate picture of the increases that are occurring, or was that the only area where there might be a cause of concern because of not an apples to apples comparison?
Well, you've really touched upon the key criteria in examining these numbers, is because to go from an estimate of the completion of 1 year to a budget for the next year will cause you to not really compare exact like kinds. An illustration of that would be a case of, and I pick on the animal control department as a prime example of this, because if you look at the estimated expenditures for the animal control for this fiscal year, you see a number of about $165,000. The adopted budget for the animal control was over $190,000. What would cause that? Well, what caused that was that we were low on staff for a lot of the year. Well, if you're going to budget appropriately, we're to a full staff again now. If you're going to budget appropriately in FY06, you're going to budget to pay all 4 of those people all year. So you will have a perception, if you use the estimated amount, of a very big increase, when in fact nothing's really happening except that we expect to pay our 4 people all year, just like we expected to pay 4 people all year in the adopted 05 budget. There are some other cases that I did look at in consideration. The Planning and Community Development Department would look like it has a large and perhaps even greater than large increase. And there was a couple of reasons for that, but one of them was, again, there was a lot of there was 1 or 2 vacancies that lasted a great portion of the year. And there's still vacancies over there, yes, sir. And also the addition of, and that shows an increase from 177,000 to 204,000, when in fact, when you look at the real numbers, the real budgeted positions, there's really a very, very nominal increase in the cost center. Let's see if I've checked off a few of these. Well, another example, if you look at, and the third one I really wanted to touch on, is, of course, in the Parks and Recreation Department, where you see a large increase in the parks in that area. Again, that was a situation of vacancies, first of all, creating an expenditure level lower than the budget for this year, and then having to make adjustments in the budget for next year because of the utilities for the recreation center, for some additional equipment replacement that they have to have in their ongoing equipment, and also an adjustment for the Fun Time Live project, which pays for itself, but the money has to show up in the budget. And if you compare budget this year to budget next year, it doesn't look very, very much different. But if you compare that projection with one-time activities occurring in it, it looks like a very big increase that really shouldn't be.
Mr. Muir, do you have any comments you'd like to make on this before I open it up for the council?
Well, like what Mr. Welsh said with the parks, I think the article did address some of the increases that are due to the parks as far as the utilities and stuff like that. The article did address that. I think where a lot of the misconception got confused is that the editors seemed to put a chart in there that listed every city department in there in their comparison, and we're the only city they did that with, at least that I can recall. They didn't do that with any other city, and you see some of those increases based on the fact that they were using the estimated FY0405 numbers instead of the budget numbers, and it just made it look like we're on a spending spree, and it's just anything farther from that. It's very frustrating with the cavalier attitude. That's all I've got.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Members of the council, any further questions? I say further questions. I've asked all of them so far, but any questions for Mr. Wells? Councilmember Sutton?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to reiterate, you've told us before, and I've checked you out and verified that labor accounts for about 80% of our expenses in the city. So anytime we have a variance in there, for instance, we fill a position that wasn't filled before or add a staff, that makes a pretty big difference in that department relative to the budget, because that's 80% of the cost of the budget.
Absolutely, sir. It's at roughly almost 81% now, and increasing annually, so the impact is going to be greater as time goes by.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else from the council? Okay, there being none, I am in line for a motion regarding the wishes of the council on the budget for 0506, the second reading. And Councilmember Holcomb, I believe you had your light on first.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2005-036-.
Councilmember Sutton. Is that supposed to? No, it's the next one. It's got to have specific language.
Yeah, that's a sufficient motion as made.
Right. That's for a second, Mayor.
Have a motion and a second to approve on second reading the budget for 0506. Any discussion on the motion? If you will, register your vote, please. And it is a unanimous vote to approve. We come now to item number 6, which has to do with the tax rate. Mr. Welch?
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned a few moments ago, historically, the budget item and the tax item for the second reading have been consent agenda items, but with the passage of Senate Bill 18 this year by the legislature and its subsequent signing by the governor, there's been some changes in the rules. You, of course, have been present for the 2 public hearings that were required under Senate Bill 18 now, and we've had to publish numerous notices that I might mention at slightly over $1,000 a pop, have increased some of the costs of our advertising for the city. At this point, we also felt it was necessary to pull the item from the consent agenda where we were originally considering it to a regular item because of the voting requirements, as we've mentioned, and Mr. Olson just mentioned a moment ago indirectly. There is a wording difference that has to be addressed with this ordinance, and so therefore we felt it necessary to bring it as a regular item and have it have its own vote, which we believe gets us into compliance with Senate Bill 18. The property tax rate is proposed to be 55.76 cents. That's 18.8 cents for the debt service and the balance for maintenance and operations.
Any questions for Mr. Welch regarding the tax rate? Okay, we have had the public hearing on the tax rate, and tonight we are ready on second reading to approve the tax rate. Councilmember Hutchison?
Oh, okay. I make a motion that we approve the ordinance for the second reading of the fiscal year 2005-2006 proposed tax rate.
You need to look at page 2. There you go.
Well, I'm getting ready to do that here. I move that the property taxes be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of 55.76 cents.
Councilmember Reese?
That's for a second.
Okay, Councilmember Sutton? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve on second reading the tax rate to underwrite the budget. Any discussion on the motion? If you will register your vote, please. And that too is a unanimous vote of the council. We come now to item number 7, and this has to do with conducting a public hearing, and to introduce that, our planning director, James Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, citizens of Haltom City. Item number 6 and 7 are item number 7 and 8 are public hearings for a plat. This is consideration and/or action regarding the application of Mr. Jeff Geese for the preliminary plat of Lot 1, Block 1, Diamond Oaks Golf Club Edition, being part of the Sarasota Survey, Abstract 1425, and the Hugh F. Largent Survey, Abstract 959, in the single-family residential district located on the west side of Diamond Oaks Drive, containing approximately 8.8318 acres of land, locally known as 5821 Diamond Oaks Drive. For those in the audience and on TV, this is the golf course clubhouse. It was never a legal lot of record. And if you'll note the correspondence dated July 20th, 2005, the reason for this preliminary and final plat, Mr. Geis is addressing me with the city, represents CPG Diamond Oaks, which is the owner of Diamond Oaks Country Club, in connection with the above referenced plat. The letter serves to confirm that the proposed plat of the property is being pursued at the request of the owner's lender, Textron Financial Corporation. They're just simply meeting this as a legal lot of record. So the first one here is the preliminary plat. It's P1305. The plat was recommended for approval to the City Council by the Planning and Zoning Commission on their August 23rd, 2005 meeting. Therefore, I formally submit the 11 by 17 reduced copy of said plat for your discussion.
Any questions for Mr. Pliska on this item? Councilmember Sutton?
Yeah, James, I just wanted to mention that in the letter here, a comment says that the owner has no plans on expanding the golf course or adding structures to the property, and I think that was clear.
That is correct. There was some concern at the P&Z and for some of the property owners located within 200 feet that this might be some sort of subdivision. And indeed, it is a subdivision. It's just a platting, making it a legal lot of record for the lot that the clubhouse sits on.
Any further questions for Mr. Pliska? Okay, thank you, Mr. Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor.
This is a public hearing, and I'll open the public hearing at this time to allow members of the audience to address the council regarding the thoughts of whoever might like to speak regarding whether this preliminary plat request should be approved. Mr. Geese, are you in the audience tonight? Okay, I don't believe he is. We always like to give the applicant first opportunity to address the council. Do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council? Yes. Sir, if you would come to the podium, please give us your name and address for the record.
Rob Larkin, the general manager of the golf club, and I just wanted to reiterate exactly what Mr. Pliska said, that this was a technical request by the lender. We really don't have any plans to change the club at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this item at this time? Okay, there being none, I'll close the public hearing, and I am ready now, members of the council, for a motion regarding this preliminary plat, P013-05. Councilmember Bransom, your light was on first, and then Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we make a motion, we accept P01305.
Okay, Councilmember Sutton.
That's for a second, Mayor.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If you will, register your vote. And that is a unanimous vote. You want to tell us about item number 8? The language sounds very similar.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. As it was a tract of land and not a legal lot of record or a replat of a piece of property, we always preliminary and final plat a tract of land. With the preliminary plat we just passed, my department secures the necessary drainage information for said plat. Now we're addressing the final plat. It's the same piece of property, same instrument, except now it is just addressing formally becoming Lot 1, Block 1 of the Golf Course Country Club Edition, or the Diamond Oaks Golf Club Edition. Again, this plat was recommended for approval to the City Council by the Planning and Zoning Commission on their August 23, 2005 meeting. I formally submit, therefore, the correspondence we discussed earlier, July 20, 2005, as stated prior, that is just for meeting, again, financial reasons that they're pursuing this plat, and therefore formally submitting the 11 by 17 reduced copy of said plat for your discussion.
Okay, to be sure everybody in the audience and those watching on TV understand what we're doing. The last action we took was to approve the preliminary plat, and we can't approve the final plat till we approve the preliminary plat. So having approved the preliminary plat, we're now ready to take action to approve the request for final plat. Any questions or comments, council? Okay, I'm ready for motion at this time regarding item number 8. Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion we approve P-25-05 as written.
Okay, I think I failed technically to open the public hearing. Do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on this one? Okay, I've opened the public hearing. No one has requested to speak. I close the public hearing at this time. And your motion again, Councilmember Clark?
Yes, sir, that we approve P-25-05 as written.
Councilmember Reese?
That's for a second.
Councilmember Bransom? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. If you will, register your vote. And motion passes. We come now to item number 9. And Mr. Pliska, I think you're on again.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, citizens of Haltom City. This is a little bit different. This is an ordinance for a rezone of property, and this is Z605, the 6th zoning case of 05, and it's looking at the adoption of Ordinance O 2005-040-15. And this is consideration and/or action regarding the public hearing for approval of the first reading of Ordinance O 2005-40-15 to rezone the property from C1 Commercial District to C3 Commercial District on proposed Lot 2R, Block 16 of the Meadow Oaks Edition, located on the northwest side of Broadway Avenue and Rita Street, containing approximately .9727 acres and locally known as 5161 Broadway. This is a rezone request for approval to operate an auto, tire, and dispatch facility, which will include retail, storage, and repair at the site. The site is currently zoned C1 Commercial District, and this type of use is not allowed in the district. The applicant will have a retail tire store, make tire repairs, and dispatch trucks for mobile tire service. This zoning change is in compliance with the city's land use plan, or CLUP. At their meeting on August 23, 2005, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-2 to recommend approval of zoning change request from the C1 Commercial District to the C3 Commercial District on proposed Lot 2R, Block 16 of the Meadow Oaks Edition to the City Council. Therefore, I formally submit the following attachment, a copy of said ordinance, Exhibit A, which is mentioned in the ordinance and is the proposed layout for the facility, the existing lot layout, as is there now, and existing zoning districts, so you see this new request relative to the existing zoning districts along Broadway.
Members of the council, questions or comments for Mr. Pliska before I open the public hearing? Councilmember Reese?
I was just curious, could you inform me as to what the two voted, I guess, against it for? I mean, what significance is there?
There were some concerns that there was not enough C3 in the immediate area, and the heavier use of the facility was discussed as well. They didn't really state, I'm only giving you information as to what took place during the discussion, but neither commissioner had stated as to why. But the discussion centered around the nature of zoning in the area and the potential of the C3 district, or the number of uses associated with C3.
Councilmember Sutton, and then Councilmember Bransom.
Thank you, Mayor. James, is it appropriate, or is there any restrictions on the time that the business can be in operation by this, what we have before us today?
That's a good question. I believe that it is not a conditional use permit, and
So it's
I
not
don't
a
think that we
conditional-
can affect the time on it. That might be a question we want to run through Wayne. There is some issues in terms of contract zoning, and I don't know if we're treading into that. But I would like to state on Section 30 of the city's ordinance, for city council approval, a site plan must be acted upon by the city council after recommendations by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and a site plan submitted in conjunction with an application for zoning change, particularly for C3, based on what occurred during the public hearing. So I don't know if you're getting into hours, would that be contract zoning or?
I'm just asking, did the Planning and Zoning Commission approve it with anything like that?
No, because it wasn't
Okay.
coming before them as a CUP.
Okay, that's what I
Right.
need to know. Thanks.
But there was discussion centered around the fact that this might be a 24-hour facility, in which it is, because it's a dispatch facility. I believe there was some discussion centered around the operating hours, and the applicant did state some information on that basis. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Bransom.
Thank you, Mayor. James, I have several questions, and some of them, is the applicant here tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so
We'll get
some
to
of them
that.
may really go to him when we get to that piece. How many C3, how much C3 zoning is on Broadway, on this end of Broadway? And I guess for the people that aren't familiar with the property we're talking about, it's what, about 2 blocks west on the same side as the fire station? About 2 blocks west of the fire station?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
How many C3s are in that area around there?
Immediately, there is some C3 on Parker and Broadway to the west of the facility. There is some C3 that is across the street. There is generally, as you go west towards Beach, there's quite a bit of C3, particularly in there's even some industrial as you get closer to Beach.
And why wouldn't a C2 cover the services that this business is going to operate? Was there a reason that they asked for C3 instead of a C2?
Yes, because of the repair at the site. If he runs a dispatch facility and he's mobile tire service and he does retail there, that is okay in a C2.
So what type of repair then is going to take place?
It
Are
is
you
my
just talking
understanding-
about fixing a tire, or
Fix
is
tire
there?
repair, exactly. Right.
So back to Councilmember Sutton's question, then are they going to be fixing? I mean, I know when I go get my tires changed, there's a lot of noise there. So is that going to be going on like at midnight? Are they going to be fixing these tires at midnight?
Again, that might be a good question for the applicant, but the way he explained it to P&Z is that the dispatch service operates 24 hours, of course, if a truck has a problem on the road. But there will not be repair of trucks or cars at the site after hours.
So that would fall under our regular noise ordinances and that sort of thing?
Correct.
Then.
Our
Is
noise
that right?
ordinance, which is part of the zoning ordinance, would not permit any excessive noise after 10 p.m.
Okay, but there are homes behind part of this
That is correct.
facility, isn't that correct?
Immediately to the north of the facility is a residential zoning district, and there are homes immediately adjacent to the facility to the east, but those are non-conforming residences that are zoned commercial.
Okay, so we don't actually have any occupants of those buildings that are living there as a homestead at this time?
Yes, there are
there are,
occupants
okay.
in those structures at this time, I believe. I believe the applicant uses those as rental property.
This applicant?
Yes.
Okay, so these, the plantings that are on the north side of the lot, that is supposed to be the noise buffer for the
That is correct. The ordinance requires that
Air compressor, isn't that what, air compressor or something like that, isn't that what makes all the noise when you're fixing a tire?
Sure. Air compressors and also impact wrenches that are used during the process, I believe.
Okay.
But the ordinance requires that any time a non-residential use borders a residential use, that a 10-foot landscape buffer be maintained between those two districts, and a screening device be maintained as well by the commercial use.
And a screening device being a fence?
Yes,
Okay, a fence is in addition to the landscaping.
that is correct.
Okay, and then I have a few more questions. You know where some of them are coming from
Sure.
because we've already talked about those. The parking along Broadway. Broadway is already congested during certain hours of the day, and as I understand it, the trucks will be going in on one side, either on the east or west, and coming out on the other one, whichever way they're going to go through. What about parking in front of the building? Is there going to be parking in front of the building where people are going to be backing out onto Broadway from the front of this
The
building?
ordinance does not allow for this type of use to count head-in parking and that which is considered in the front there.
Okay, but they can still park there. You're just not counting it as
Just not
parking
counting it.
spaces as far
Right.
as how many spaces are required for a business.
It
Is
is.
that correct?
It will not be, in terms of, as it's shown on this site plan, parking that is approved by the ordinance. Now, if somebody whips in there, like to drop something off, or UPS pulls in there, that's something that could potentially happen because that was parking in the past. But in this particular site plan, that is not considered parking as required by the ordinance.
Are we going to have any landscaping across the front of this building? We have some really nice buildings on that part of Broadway, the fire station, the rec center, that we're bringing some green space back onto Broadway. Are we going to have any green anything in front of this building when
If he
it's
were
completed?
to expand the facility, that would trigger additional landscaping, but at this time, I cannot require, or the ordinance can require, additional landscaping in the first front yard setback.
What about semis? These are big truck tires, as I understand it, that this dispatch is going to be running. So I presume that when they're brought in, that they don't come in on a pickup or something like that. They probably come in on a semi. So are we going to have semis coming down Broadway trying to make a turn into this facility?
This particular site plan is not conducive for a semi to maneuver and to back into this facility. He would have to increase his ability in his concrete area in the back for a semi to pull in, maneuver on site, and then pull out.
So
But the
how's
ordinance
he?
would not allow for the maneuvering of a semi using Broadway to maneuver on the site.
So does that mean they're going to come down Rita to? I guess maybe the question's for him. Are tires coming in on a semi to be
I
offloaded
couldn't
here?
answer that question.
Okay. Well, when he.
Sure.
Mayor, when we talk with the applicant, I'd like to ask a few
Okay,
questions of
we'll
him.
get to the applicant in a moment when I open the public hearing. Anything else? Councilmember Hutchison?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Pliska, give me a percent here. Give me a feel for how much of the facility will be used for repair, how much of the time will be used for repair, and how much will be used for dispatch? 80, 20, 10%, 90%, what?
I could only speculate on the discussions I've had with him. At his existing facility right now, it is probably 70% dispatch, given the size of his existing facility.
Okay.
At this facility, with the nature of area that he has on the north end or the back side of the facility, it would be a better question for the applicant.
And the property just north of the building and the parking area back there that he has got, are there plans to expand this business or the dispatch function or the tire service function back on this north part? Or has he discussed that with you?
He has discussed that. There was some discussion at P&Z, and given the nature of this site plan, yes, there is room for expansion. There is a room for expansion in terms of activity at the facility, but also room to expand the building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, before I call on Councilmember Sutton to follow up, just for clarity's sake, in the event that building is expanded beyond 25%, that triggers the need for masonry front and all of the other things that are involved in that.
That is correct.
Any significant expansion is going to create a whole new world there instead of the metal building, and instead of just asphalt out front, it's got to have some landscaping, that type of thing.
That is correct, Mayor. Any type of expansion will trigger new codes, including the masonry ordinance, which we passed approximately a year ago, which will require that in an addition greater than 25%, he would have to meet the requirements of 80% masonry for the
On
structure.
the existing property as well as on the new building that
Correct.
was, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification purposes, the applicant has had a business in this town for about 20 years, I believe you said, right?
I believe that is what he stated at planning. and zoning. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and that this exercise here, this submitting this site diagram and going to the C3 is for him to allow him to do the type of business he's been doing. Is that correct?
That is correct at this location.
At this location? Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, anything else for Mr. Pliska? Thank you, Mr. Pliska.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll open the public hearing at this time, and as is our procedure here, we allow the applicant to be the first to address the council. Mr. Donahue, would you like to address the council or just be available to answer questions? If you don't mind, give us your name, and I think we know your business address, but give us your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Dennis Donahue. I've been a business owner in your town for 20 years, basically right across the street at the Cobb Business Park. The zoning, I believe, there is C3, of which that is what I'm asking for at the new location. As far as the dispatch, the percentage that y'all were asking questions about as far as dispatch, 99% of my business is on the road. The only new business that I'm talking about is like cars or pickups that might want to come in there and get, tires changed or flats repaired. There will be no activity at the front at all. If you look at my site plan, and in addressing Ms. Bransom's concerns about landscaping, I was going to put sidewalks along the front, new landscaping along the front, and that's just basically going to be a frontal view. Everything is going to be conducted in the back side, which we will have noise buffers for. There will be no 18-wheeler tractor and trailer in my facility. We will do that on the road. Is there any other questions, please?
Okay, members of the council, any question for Mr. Donahue? Councilmember Branson?
Well, the 18-wheelers, I wasn't thinking of the ones with the flat tires coming in. My concern was how are you going to I presume you have an inventory of tires in your building when you go?
I've got a few, but
You go somewhere then to get the
Yes,
tire?
ma'am.
And then, okay.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
I was picturing was all these big old tires coming in to your building somehow, and I couldn't imagine how to get them there without putting them on an 18-wheeler.
No, ma'am. There are so many wholesale outlets
Okay.
within a 25-mile area of my business and we go in every which direction,
Okay.
as far as on service calls. So we can stop at any one of these locations, and why inventory when they're going to inventory
Well,
for you?
No, I totally agree, but I'm just,
Right, I
in
understand.
my mind,
I
I'm
understand.
seeing, a larger version of a discount tire, okay?
Correct,
All right.
correct.
And my other concern is, I think all these plants are wonderful and great, and you'll keep them watered, right, so
Oh,
that they
definitely,
live?
Definitely.
Because I know we have some that have put in all this landscaping, and I drive by and I see 7 or
Dead.
8 bushes
Mhm.
dead.
I agree,
And-
definitely. I wish that y'all as council members and city representatives could come to where I live. I love nature, love plants, flowers. I mean, that's just
Okay.
what I do for a hobby, and I like things to look nice.
Well, and I do too, and this is like our main street.
Correct.
Like I said before, we have the firehouse and the fire station and the rec center, and we're working real hard to get landscaping in there, and you're real close to one of those
Right.
green spaces, so I'd kind of like to see it flow through. But those are great answers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Councilmember Hutchison.
Yes, sir. Plans on developing the northern part right here. Now, you said you go out, you take these I guess trucks that go out and change tires and so on and so forth, are your plans to park them in this empty lot back here that's north of the facility that you're developing right now?
No, sir. My servicemen, which are assigned to each truck, they take those home with them. Since we are a 24-hour operation, I dispatch by phone, call them at their location, and they leave from their living facility.
Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Donahue, in pre-council, we had some discussion on the size of your trucks that you dispatch. Could you describe one of your trucks for me?
Sure. They're all 3/4-ton Chevrolet long bed pickups. Got compressors on the back and enough carrying capacity for probably 4 or 5 truck tires or 8 car tires.
Okay, so where you have the egress on the east and on exit on the west, it'd just be a normal truck turning in and turning out.
Yes, sir.
It wouldn't tie up traffic, just.
Absolutely.
And also, I see that your building is approximately 60 feet long, and on the street on Broadway, I assume that's a curb. Is it 60 feet also, or there approximately? So if a car were to pull into your asphalt area, he'd have to come in the driveway and go out the driveway unless he drove over the curb, correct?
Well, there are 2 approaches.
Right.
One on either side, and like in the site plan explains, we're going to be coming in one way and going out the other. There's no activity in the front.
Right.
In fact, we will be putting signs up per saying that.
Thanks, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Donahue, I have a question, and it's just for clarity on something I thought I heard you say earlier about a sidewalk out front and some landscaping out front.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that a little bit more than...
What I would, based on what my site plan is showing, you've already got existing sidewalks on both sides of, on both sides of me, down Broadway side. I was just going to make it uniform, put the additional sidewalks in front of the business, along with the landscaping, and just try to make it look a lot better.
Okay, and talk about the landscaping a little bit. What do you have in mind out front between the building and the street?
Okay. Primarily, right in front of the building on both sides of my entry door, or the overhead door that's there along Broadway, I'm going to put shrubs, small, just it'll be green boxwoods or nandinas, something like that, just for landscaping purposes. At the street site, probably a crepe myrtle, something with a little color, maybe 2 or 3 of them, along with some type of uniform shrub.
Well, I think you can see that Broadway, as Ms. Bransom indicated earlier, is a major thoroughfare, and
Definitely.
we're taking a lot of pride in what comes in and goes in along there with the new fire station and with the new rec center and other things. And I do want to challenge you to make that place look really nice. You know, it's a metal building, and I wish it were masonry, but it isn't. And with what you're telling us, you can maximize the visual impact of making that look nice along there. And I just like to challenge you to deliver on what you just said with those crepe myrtles and the nandinas and the boxwood and whatever else you're going to put out front.
Mm-hmm.
That can really decorate up that little area there.
I would love to accept your challenge. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, you've been on Broadway for 20 years, and you've seen the improvements we've made.
Definitely.
In fact, I notice where you currently are, Mr. Cobb's done some things over there to improve that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're looking forward to seeing what you can make happen.
Thank you.
I think there are no other questions by the council for you, Mr. Donahue. I'm going to open the floor at this time if you want to go ahead and be seated.
Thank you.
May need to call you back up if a citizen has a question, but for right now, members of the audience, anyone wishing to address the council regarding this applicant? Yes, if you would, ma'am, we need you to come forward to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kay Lopez. My husband and I, James, he wasn't able to be here tonight, actually sold Mr. Donahue the property in the 2 rental houses that are on Rita. y'all will be glad to know now that he does have it, because we weren't able to do the improvements on the front of the building. On the two houses, the two rental properties, he has already gone in, and I'm thrilled about this because I live in the third house. The two rental properties, he's already done a lot of landscaping and tremendous improvements there. Where I am, my rear lot is actually north of this property. There's already a fence that's been put up, and as far as the noise level, my grandchildren riding the four-wheelers back there, it probably makes more noise than what I would expect. I hear very little noise from my home, but I'm real excited about the improvements he's already done to that. 25161 Broadway. I wanted that whole corner to be the new area for the library for Haltom City. I thought it would look great there with everything else close by. But I am glad that he has it, and he's done everything that he told me he would do with the property. And we weren't able to do it, so I'm thrilled that he did. And I just want to let y'all know that.
Let's see if anyone on the council has a question or comment
Yes.
for you before you're seated. Anyone? I believe there are none. Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council on this application to rezone? Okay, there being none, I close the public hearing at this time, and I'm ready for a motion regarding the wishes of the council. And I believe Councilmember Sutton had his light on first, and then Councilmember Holcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to approve ordinance number O-2005-040-15.
Councilmember Holcomb.
Second.
Councilmember Hutchison. That was for a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? There being none, if you'll register your vote. And the motion passes. We move now to item number 10. And Mr. Muir, you want to introduce this item for us at this time, please?
Thank you, Mayor. What we have presented before you tonight is the fee ordinance. A couple of years ago, we've consolidated all the city's fees into one ordinance so that the council would be able to consider those at one time. And we're doing it in conjunction with the budget. What you've got before you is again the fee ordinance. It's got some modest changes for the. I'm not going to go through all these changes out here. I'll highlight a few of them. There's massive changes regarding the parks and recreation fees. This is certainly in light of the new rec center and the features therein. We've already been using some fees, and this document will ratify the rate structure that we've got there. There's also some a lot of changes in regards to the water bills. And I'm not talking about the water rates. I'm talking about the fees that are associated with those, as far as deposits, disconnects, meter pulls, things like that. In deposits, right now we have a $60 deposit for a resident, whether it's a renter or a homeowner. What the ordinance proposes is that the deposit goes up to $75, and that for a renter, for a tenant, the deposit goes up to $120. And that's largely predicated because of the payment histories that we've had with these guys that we've experienced, the cutoff lists that we go through. Several hundred every month. That about 90% of them are renters, and we've got an obligation to the citizens that support our water system to properly manage this, and this is certainly a way for us to help us get there. Also, some changes regarding animal control fees and stuff, but again, I'm not going to go into all this. They're highlighted in the ordinance, and this will be the first reading of the ordinance. It'll be a second reading on the 26th, second and final reading. But with that, I'll take any questions or any comments.
I know we
I'm sorry, Joel, did you have anything you wanted to add? I didn't see you sitting there. I'm sorry.
That's right, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I want to mention that there is one new wrinkle to the ordinance, and that is, pull this a little closer. and that is we've inserted a section into the ordinance that will basically permit us to change the fee schedule, this attachment of all these fees, on an annual basis by a resolution. We won't have to go back and redo the ordinance over and over. It's a bit of a time saver. It's as long as we don't change any of the other elements of the ordinance. You know, the ordinance is the ordinance. It'll be in the same place, easily findable. All we'll do from here on is just change fees that need to be changed on an annual basis. This is going to be part of the budget process. Henceforth, when the rate ordinance was passed in 2003, it was originally contemplated that it would be an element of the budget adoption process, and we're going to carry it forward that way from here on.
Okay, members of the council, any questions for Mr. Muir or for Mr. Welch? Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I learned back in pre-council that we really didn't have any records of how the fees that were collected from Parks and Recs because we really didn't have any.
Let me clarify. We do because we've been collecting fees for the Parks and Rec, but as far as for the fitness room, we don't because we never had a fitness room prior to that. But as far as room usage, field usage and stuff, yes, we've got that.
Okay.
That
really, this budget really does do a lot of work. George has done a lot of work in the Parks and Rec to bring the fee structure there. And it looks like we're balancing a little bit more of the usage of our Parks and Recreation between taking some of the burden off the general tax and putting a little bit more of it on fees is what I'm seeing. And I just want to say that seems to be a fair thing to start to do. And I appreciate that work.
Further questions for the city manager or the finance director? Councilmember Branson.
Well, they're not questions, they're a comment. I just want to say that thank you for highlighting them so I could see the changes. And I really appreciate what some of the departments did about going through and looking at where we needed to make some changes in the fees. It looks to me like there was some real thought given to some of these, and there were some real surprises in there on what we were giving away on my part. So I appreciate that.
This will be an exercise we'll be going through every year from a staff level, and we'll come back and give something to you, but we'll be doing this every budget year.
I think that's a good idea. Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Welch. We have one citizen who's requested to address the council regarding this item, Mr. Ray Eklund. Mr. Eklund, if you will, come forward at this time. And I think you're familiar with our procedure, time limits, and that type of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ray Eklund. I live at 2532 Oakwood Terrace. In regards to the fee schedule, I was taken aback by the city manager's comment of modest changes on some of the items. Thank you. Mr. Welch's comment about time saving, I would like to ask the council to please maybe strike that part of the ordinance that says you can go through a resolution next time. Because I think it's important that this little 6 minutes that we get to visit here in a public forum happen. And as a resolution, and then if it gets dumped over in the consent agenda, these fees are going to jump, they're going to move around, things are going to happen, and citizens will quickly lose track of what's going on with their government. And I think we'd be much better off in this format that we're sharing this evening. I appreciate all the effort of the persons that put this thing together, but I do have a couple concerns. Page 3, line number 20, Mr. James Poliska, I'm sure, will be happy to tell me why the masonry variance ordinance. That's if a guy wants to put a nice, attractive house into a neighborhood that has nice, attractive houses that don't happen to have any masonry on them, and so it would comply with the neighborhood. For example, Broadway right down the street on the other side of the Postal Service, there's a beautiful craftsman's home on both sides. You could set those houses anywhere you wanted to in Arlington Heights, and they'd be an asset. And somebody built this big brick monster down there on the corner. Now, that, of course, meets with the ordinance. Right? But if a guy wanted to build another craftsman house down there, right, and not use masonry outside, his fee would jump from $100 to $300. That's a 200% increase. I would be surprised if the cost of our efforts to provide the variance jumped by 200%. Most of our budget jumped by 3%. So with that in mind, I think that needs to be looked at again. I understand this is the first reading, and we'll have an opportunity between now and the next time to do what you want. Page 6, line 15, the plan review fee. People that come up here and bring their plans, they want to come do business in our town, they want to build a house, they want to build a business, whatever it is, they're going to bring their plans in, they're going to construct something. They used to pay $0, and starting on this new fee schedule, you're going to pay $150 for that service. Now, I understand this may in fact be related to the building officials, but by golly, we're already paying for that salary, so it sounds like we're kind of paying twice. And, you know, if we're going to encourage people to come in here, maybe we ought to look at those things. The rec center fee, personally, I wasn't really concerned with the workout thing because you'll never catch me down there working out. But page 8, line 34, the $30 an hour to use the multi-purpose room, I have a problem with that. That's a lot of money to use a room that I already paid for. So as a taxpayer, I voted for the bond, I paid the taxes, I bought the building, I paid for the lights through the regular budget process, and now you want to charge me $30 an hour to have my birthday party down there or my visit with my friends or whatever I want to do. And since we're on the same page, page 8, item number 37, the rec center, you're going to charge me $120 to use that room. And I think that's a bit much, and I'll follow over with you. I'm trying not to go on my time limit, of course. But anyway, it's like a 4-hour minimum down there, so it looked like it's going to be $120, if I'm not mistaken. The water department, page 11, item number 15, a warning fee. See, if you're going to charge me a fee for the warning, it's not really a warning, is it? You know, you're always socking it to me. So I would like somebody to explain a warning fee to me. Okay? Item number 3.
I'm sorry, could you restate that, please? I didn't hear where you were talking
Page 11, number 15. Let me follow along with you. How's that? Item number 15. Warning fee, door hanger or in person, per warning or door hanger. $25, and it's going to go up to $30. That's unpleasant at best. Number 3, account transfer fee. It's a 100% jump for someone that has chosen to stay in our town and move from one unit to another, and you're going to raise their fee 100%. I understand that these new figures were already figured into our budget, which you guys have just approved, so it sounds like we got the cart before the horse a little bit on that one. Anyway, these are the things that are concerned to me that were just highlighted, you know, and I would like for the council to consider those items as they move forward with the second reading on this thing. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. Okay, I don't believe anyone else has signed up to address the council on this matter. Members of the council, unless you have further questions growing out of anything the speaker just addressed, I'm ready for a motion regarding what your wishes are on the first reading on item number 10. Councilmember Bransom?
Actually, mine was in response to what the speaker just said. Mr. Muir, when you all looked at these fees, I'm sure that, and I mean, Mr. Eklund had a point about he pays for the, let's use the rec center for an example, in his taxes and that sort of thing. But when you looked at these, you took into consideration the additional staff time it took to clean up the room after you rented it for a party, or for the additional utilities or the air conditioning or heating or whatever it took to have that room operational at that time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that part of what went into that?
Yes, ma'am.
And when Planning and Zoning looked at the situation where people initially brought in their plans for no charge and then now are wanting to charge, is that because perhaps they didn't have it all together when they first came in and were making multiple stops and that sort of thing?
Not that part of it, not really. Well, I'll
No?
let Mr. Pliska standing at the podium
good.
now. I'll let him address that.
Thank you. I'd like to address that. Mr. Eklund is confused on that point. The plan review fee is the fire department's review charge for a fire sprinkler system. Okay? For plan review, building plan reviews, the fee is set by the 97 Administrative Code, in which it's based still on the cost of the project. And a plan review fee for reviewing those plans is 65% of that assessed value. And it has been in the ordinance and is not affected by this ordinance. Because if you'll note, we're still using the 1997 Administrative Code in building inspections. He is looking at the fire department's plan review fee for a fire sprinkler system.
These fees, like this sprinkler system, or even the ones you were remarking on, how many cities charge those type of fees?
They all do that have adopted the codes.
So we're one of the last ones to not be charging that fee. Is that
That is
accurate?
correct, and that
So
is-
as far as
yes,
it
sir.
being a deterrent or, I mean, it hasn't exactly been having people knocking down our doors to come develop here because we haven't been charging it.
No.
So it's not going to be a deterrent.
In fact, we received a plan review for a fire sprinkler system today, and those are massive reviews. They drop off. A fire suppression system is a very complicated system, and the fire marshal's office has to sit down and review extensive documents for this. It takes a lot of staff time, and that, with the passage of the 2003 codes, that makes these fees in line with everybody else. Now, in terms of the masonry, I'd like to address that.
Sure.
When the city looked at the masonry ordinance, that fee was set for the variance and to apply from $100 to $300.
So this is just more or less ratifying what that ordinance,
It is
what the
ratifying that
masonry ordinance did.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Mayor, can I back up with one more question, comment? When you all were setting these fees, I presume that you looked in neighboring cities, and that, I mean, y'all didn't just
Certainly.
sit down in one day and say, oh, $20 sounds good for that, what do you think?
Certainly.
I mean, it wasn't garage sale tactics, you did research and.
Could I address that too?
Certainly.
Mr. Muir?
Yes.
The North Texas Council of Governments sends out to all the cities documents that indicate what all the other cities are charging in these areas.
That's good to know.
Right.
So should someone be interested in knowing what our neighboring cities, or even not neighboring, but anyone else, they can go to probably the website for North Texas Council of Governments and pull
Right.
up the fee schedule for all
Right.
the other cities?
It's addressed there, and my department has that for anybody to review at any time.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks.
If I could, Joel, do you want to address any of Mr. Eklund's concerns?
The only one I was going to, he'd mentioned the hangar fee, and what basically drives the methodology or the rationale behind charging the hangar fees, which the warning one he's talking about refers to specific violations such as tamperings or other types of violations of our property in terms of the water meter. It's not just a warning of them about to be cut off. This is usually due to a hot check, or like I said, they've tampered with a meter or something. And we put a door hanger there. And what causes it to cost us some money is we use meter readers to deliver those. Well, the meter reader has to stop reading, go back to the office, put his Roadrunner, that's his entry device, onto its cradle, download it, leave it there, get the hanger, drive out to the residence, put the hanger out, come back, pick up his route again, with his data on it, and go back to reading. And basically, when you factor in the cost of an hour of a meter reader's time and the use of the vehicle and everything else, it's not that much of a fee. It's really pretty much representative of the cost of breaking up the routine to do the service.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Mr. Muir, any further comments before I recognize Councilmember Sutton?
Not at this time, no, Mayor.
Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, our city manager, related to us that this fee structure is in place and it supports the budget that we passed earlier. Mr. Eklund acknowledged that in what he was saying. And I think something significant is happening with this is that we have fixed costs, for instance, with the Parks and Recreation Department that are associated with those fields and everything else. And one of the things that Tom could have done is raise the tax rate higher to cover those costs. And I think that it should be said that instead of raising the property tax higher, he chose to go more with the fee or the use of the facilities. So it's a little bit of a misnomer to say that I've already paid my taxes for something whenever the budget is predicated on the fee structure supporting that particular service from the city. So we could have done it by raising the taxes, and then yes, it would our taxes would have paid for the use of the rec center. However, our city manager has taken upon himself and put forward a fee structure that supports these extra uses of the city for those that are going to use it. So I just wanted to respond to that point, that it's a little bit of a misnomer to say I've already paid for it whenever the budget that has been done this year is based upon a fee structure that supports the cost of providing those services to the citizens.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, no other lights are on. I'm getting ready to call for a motion on item number 10. Anything you want to add before I do that? Okay, members of the council, what is your pleasure regarding item number 10, this amending of the Haltom City Fee Ordinance on first reading? Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion we approve ordinance 0-2005-041-03.
Have a motion to approve. Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mayor. That's for a second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council on the motion to approve? Okay, there being none, if you will, register your vote. And that is a unanimous vote of the council. We move now to the Visitor Citizens Forum. To the City Secretary, do we have anyone who has filled out a request to speak? Okay, we don't have anyone who has filled out a request to speak, but we do have one or more members of the audience who wish to address the council. This time is set aside for any person having business before the council that is not scheduled on the agenda to have an opportunity to speak to the council. The comments made must be directed toward the presiding officer rather than an individual council member or staff. Each speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter and must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. Since no one tonight has filled out the yellow speaker's card, anyone who wishes to address the council has 3 minutes. Council cannot discuss or debate any issue brought forth at this time, nor can any formal action be taken, as it is not posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Law. Mr. Watkins, your name and address, please, and if you will, tell us what you wish to address the council on, since you didn't fill out a card, please.
Bob Watkins, 6140 Blue Spruce Circle. I came up here to talk about one thing, but first I want to thank Mr. Eklund for that we have a citizen in this city that's interested enough and analytical enough to look into it, because he brought out things that he probably misunderstood, but all the rest of us did too, and it's nice to have somebody get up and talk and do that, because that requires a lot of work, because I try to delve into this stuff every now and then myself, and I haven't got time to do it. What I really came up to talk about is a big cheer or two and a little bitty jeer that happened to me this year. The first time it happened was at my appliance store, my used appliance store. Excuse me, I received a notice telling me that I was using too much water and that maybe I ought to check and find out if I had a problem. This subsequently we checked and we did have a problem, and we repaired said problem, and it's saving me a lot of money on my water bill. Another big cheer is I got one at the house telling me that my water bill, my water usage had gone up quite a lot, and so I paid $125 to have somebody come out and tell me that they couldn't find a leak. But I'm glad the water department did the first one, so I'm not going to gripe too much about the second one. The small jeer is that when I came in to discuss that with the water department, they said, Well, by the way, the first reading was for 27 days, and the next reading was 41 days. Well, no wonder my water bill was 30 or 40% higher. So while they are sending out these notices, I think it would be nice if they would check and see if on the possibility that somebody's bill was going to go up 50% because, or 40% because it was 40% longer time, and I would have not spent another $125 on top of what I thought I'd already spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, there being none, we will go now to item number 11, resignations of board members. Do we have any resignations to be brought before the council for ratification tonight? Councilmember Branson?
It's with regret that Clay Cavazos has resigned from the Parks and Rec Board. He has located to another city.
Okay, if you will, council, express your desire to ratify this resignation. And it is by unanimous vote that this resignation is ratified. Do we have any others? What about appointments or reappointments to boards or commissions? Okay, there being none, we move to the last item on the agenda in open session, the attendance requirements. We have one of our council members tonight who is absent. You notice Councilmember Bill Lanford is not here. I think he's off on a cruise to Alaska. I guess it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. And the question before us tonight is, do we want to excuse that absence or not? And Councilmember Branson, I think you had your light on first, and then Councilmember Hutchison.
Well, you know, I really think he should have taken the whole council on a cruise to Alaska.
Actually, he's coming from Alaska. He flew to Alaska. Now he's coming.
Oh, okay.
So he's
well, he
on his
should have
way
flown
back
the
home
council
from
to Alaska for the meeting. But since he didn't, I move that we excuse his absence. Everyone needs some personal time.
Okay, Councilmember Hutchison.
Well, it is with great regret that I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Lanford for his absence tonight. If you'll register your vote for the record, please. And it is a unanimous vote of the council. The council will move at this time. The time is 18 minutes till 9. We will move into executive session as authorized by the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071.072. Yes, we will take 10 minutes. We've been here quite a while, and we may need to stretch a little bit. So at 5:10, let's be in executive session.